Hello everybody, this is Blocks Devs and welcome for part 2 of this scripting tutorial. And in this part, we're going to be learning about objects and functions that are related to objects. So before we dive into that, let's recall what we learned in the first episode. We learned how to install Roblox Studio. We learned about the Roblox Studio interface. We learned about print statements. We scratched the surface with variables and properties. So now that you know the foundation, you know about variables and properties, we can start using these variables and properties to dive into functions and objects, since most of the time you're going to be dealing with objects that are attached to Roblox Studio. So I'm going to be showing you all these objects, and I'm going to be starting with simple functions that are related to these specific objects. Alright, let's dive straight in. Alright, so as we can see here, we have our base plate open. So as we said, we're going to start by looking at objects. So you may be asking, how do you look at objects, and like what types of objects are there? Where there's several types of objects in Roblox, but the main type of objects you're probably going to find is just a physical object, which could be either a part, a mesh part, or something else. And all these objects usually have some types of functions that are related to them. For example, for a part, you could have a function that is related to the part and it's touched, and that detects whenever the part has been touched by a player or by something. So using that function, you can actually check if a player has touched the part, and that would be how you create a kill break, which is exactly what we're going to be doing. So let's start. So first things first, we're going to be inserting a part. Of course, there's two ways to do this. We could just simply go here and insert a part, or we could go here, click plus, and insert a part. Those are the two ways to do it. Now before I dive in this, I'm just going to go over the types of parts that there are. So there is a part, there is a mesh part, then there's wedge parts, there's corner wedge parts, and that's about it. But we don't really work with wedge parts and corner wedge parts a lot. Usually we only work with mesh parts and normal parts, and a lot of mesh parts are used, especially if you're a builder, since every single time you want to import a model, it's going to be most of the time with a mesh part. Alright, so we inserted a part, and now how do we know if there are any functions attached to this part that you could use to detect something? So we have our script here. Let's go to our script. It's an empty script, and let's just first of all get the part first. So we know that our part is in the workspace, and we know that our part is simply named part for now. So we're going to do local part equals workspace dot part. So now we got the part. Now if you do part, then you do dot, you'll be able to see a lot of things, and then you'll see some things with a sort of lightning bolt logo or icon. For a second, I'm going to show you this, since you can't see this, since OBS is in window capture mode. I'm going to go ahead to display capture mode so you can see it properly. Alright, so we're in display capture mode right now, and now when I do part dot, you can see all of these things, and that's what you're going to see. So now you can see here, it has a lightning bolt changed. So that's an RPX script signal. It says this fires immediately after a property of an object changes. Then there's something else touched. Fire when a part touches another part as a result of physical movement. Alright, cool. What else is there? We got child added. Fires after an object is parented to this instance. Destroying fires immediately before the instance is destroyed. Touch ended fires when the part stopped touching. And child removed. Those are all examples of functions and sort of, how can I describe this? Sort of well, let's just describe it as functions, right? It's type of functions that are sort of really prescribed to a part. So a part has these functions that will fire, and then you can connect these functions and use them to your advantage. So I've never actually heard of local simulation touch. I'm kind of curious what that does. Local simulation touched. Well, it doesn't matter. So let's go ahead and try with dot touched. Alright, part dot touched. So now, what do you do after writing part dot touched? So what do? You do colon connect. So you're connecting this touched to a function. Put these brackets. Boom. So you could do it this way. So you put your function inside. So part.touch is connected to the following function that we're about to create. Or you can make a separate function like this. Local function equals local function cool function. Here we go. So you can make a separate function like this, and then you can simply connect this function with part.touch this way. Part.touch connect cool function, and that would run this function. Alright, so both ways are valid. A lot of the times you're going to see people doing it this way, so we're just going to do it this way. Okay, cool. So now let's just say we want to do print part has been touched, and that's it. We've learned about print statements. And that's an instance where it really shows how print statements can be useful. So then you know whether a part has been touched or not. So now you can kind of tell why print statements can be pretty useful. Alright, let's just check this out. Hold on. Let's just play. Part has been touched. So now you may be wondering, why did it print part has been touched? What has touched the part? Well, the part simply has touched the ground. So if we touch our part has been touched, as you can see, it's printed several times because the part is getting touched by our character. Now, let's see. What if you want to know whether the part has been touched by a character or by something else, or like simply what if you want to know just what touched the part? So here you actually put, a lot of people here, they put hit, something called hit. So what is hit? Let's print hit, and let's find out what's hit, just so you can see and really understand. Base plate. Here it said base plate. Now if we touch the part, left foot, left lower leg, humanoid root part. So that's exactly what's touching this part in this instance. Left foot, left lower leg. So hit is what has touched the part. Now, these left foot, left lower leg are all part of my player. Let me show you what I mean by that. All part of my character. So when I spawn, my character is of course in a workspace. Here, Dev_Symphony. So if I look here, you can see left lower arm, left lower leg, left foot. Those are the things that were touching the part. So what if we look at a parent? If we look at the properties, what is the parent of left foot? Parent Dev_Symphony. So now we can get the player by getting the parent of the part that part that touched this part. So if you get the parent of the part of our body, of our character's body, that touched this part, then you'll be able to get your character and access your character. So now you'll know which player touched the part. So how exactly do you access the parent? So as you know, parent is a property. So that means you could do hit, which is the part, and the part has a property. So hit could be left leg, and left leg has properties, which means hit will have a parent property. So that's how you get your character. Now if we do print hit dot parent, what would happen? Let's see. Boom, here we had a workspace. Why? Because the base plate's parent is the workspace, and the base plate does the part. Now let's see what happens when our player touches the part. Our character, I should say. Boom. Dev Symphony. Perfect. Now we found a way to actually access our player. That's great. Now before we continue, I have a challenge for you. And the following challenge, hopefully, if you do it properly, should help you kind of get an understanding of the workflow with Roblox Studio. So let me explain the challenge to you. So let's click play. So once we click play, as we saw earlier, our character comes to the workspace. Let's see. Dev Symphony, and we've got all these things in our character. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to go to the humanoid. The humanoid is the sort of properties of the characters, kind of the status of the character on several things. So we got the health display status and the health display distance. We got the display name, and then we got what else? Guess what? All these things that are related to the game. We got health, hip height, max health, max slope angle, walk speed, all that stuff. Now what I want you to do is I want you to make it so when you touch this part, the health goes to 0 and the player gets eliminated from this game. Alright, so that's your challenge. You know how to access the parent, you know how to check hit. So now you know how to access the character already. So now think about how you're going to access the humanoid and use the properties, and then find the health property and make it equal to 0. That's your challenge, and I wish you good luck on this challenge, and I recommend you do it now, because now I'll show you exactly how to do this. Alright, assuming you've given it a shot, I'll show you how to do it now. Okay, cool. Let's go to the script, and now we already know that we can get hit.parent, which is a character. In some cases, if a character touches the part. So local character equals hit.parent, because we know hit.parent is a character most of the time if a player touches the part. Okay, so if a player touches the part, the character is going to be hit.parent. Cool. So now we already have the character, so I just made a variable for the character. You could do that or you could not, but of course I like to be neat, so making a variable is probably better. So now character dot humanoid. Now I'm getting the character as humanoid, as we saw earlier that there's a humanoid inside of the character. Dot health. I'm getting the health property that's attached to the humanoid equals 0. Now let's see if this works out. Here we had an error saying humanoid is not a valid member of workspace, and that's because workspace does not have any humanoid and it's not a character. Now let's touch this part and our player gets eliminated. Worked perfectly. Now what if you don't want any of these errors, right? Because the part is touching other things too, not only characters. Cool. So what we could do is, if character get if game get players okay. I'll explain this to you in a second. Now let's see what happens here. Is a character. So let me show you exactly the thought process here. Let me remove this. So we got our character. Now we can just simply do if character find first child humanoid, then character dot humanoid dot health equals 0, else print does not have humanoid. Alright, cool. Now that should simply clear up the errors. Does not have humanoid, as you can see. Touch the base plate, does not have humanoid. No problem. Alright, cool. Now let's touch this part real quick. Boom, does have humanoid, does not have humanoid. Oh yeah, probably because it touched the base plate as well, because we didn't print anything here. Does have humanoid. Okay. Alright, cool. So this is working fine. So that's how you make, no errors. You just can differentiate whether the thing that touched the part does have a humanoid or not. And of course, here we're using an if statement, which you haven't learned about yet, and it's a good time to learn about if statements now. If statements are extremely simple. I mean, honestly, extremely simple. It's literally just if a condition is met, or if it's not met, then do the following things. As you can see here, I said if our character, you can find this a humanoid in our character. Find first child humanoid. So if you can find a humanoid in our character, which is hit.parent, then make the humanoid's health equal to 0. Print does have humanoid. Okay, just to make sure we're doing everything good. Else, if it does not have a humanoid, then it's not a character, and print that it does not have a humanoid. Alright, so it's as simple as that. If statements are as simple as that. Now we learned about functions that are related to objects. And what else have we learned about? We learned about if statements a little bit. We scratched the surface with that, and we already have a solid understanding of variables, and now we got a pretty solid understanding of properties and how they work. So what are the next steps? Of course, Roblox is a learning curve. So what happens is it takes you practice to actually know about all the functions and objects that are in Roblox, because you're not just gonna know just like that by just looking once or twice and just learning from a tutorial. It's just about actual practice. So what I recommend for you to do is time to time to just challenge yourself, and if you run into any trouble, just make sure to go ahead and check on the dev forum, on maybe some Discord servers that are related to Roblox Studio, and check the APIs, and then you'll eventually start climbing your way up and learning everything you need to learn about Roblox Studio. Even as you can see, I'm a little bit rusty since I haven't actually coded in Roblox Studio for a really long time, like 6 months or more, probably a year. But I've been doing like Python and other stuff recently. But for me, what happened for me to actually learn Roblox Studio, and what I did to actually learn Roblox Studio, is I just practiced, and I actually made a couple of games, and that actually helped me learn and get a good understanding of Roblox Studio, to the point where I was able to do most of the things I thought about. And that's exactly what you want to do. And if you want to make a successful game, then you need to get a good idea, and then be able to actually execute this idea with your code and with your mind. So that's about it for this tutorial. I know it was a little bit shorter, but that's it for this one, and I'll be seeing you in the next one. Bye.